Hello everybody, my name is Ray. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Today we're going to be doing a follow-up on yesterday's video about Francis Collins, and we're going to be following that up today with Tim Keller. Tim Keller wants to weigh into the situation without getting his feet wet. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, another Tim Keller cryptic tweet that is completely made in the context of what's going on with the debate surrounding Francis Collins. Now, Francis Collins is someone who we've been talking about for a long time on the Evangelical Dark Web, and he is the person who's behind the pandemic. He's behind it. He's one of the figures behind it within American government. And he's also a habitual liar, a petty tyrant. He's an evil guy. Not only does he not hold Christian beliefs or convictions, but is touted as someone who does. He also works against Christian ethics and values wherever he goes. So that not only means that he's extremely pro-abortion, but he's also extremely pro-homosexuality and transgenderism as well. So that's who Francis Collins is. He was the former head of the National Institutes of Health, Anthony Fauci's boss, and now he's also a big friend, buddy with Tim Keller, buddy with Russell Moore, and a host of other evangelical figures. So don't forget to like the video, also subscribe to the channel. So let's dive into this Tim Keller tweet. Thread: can Christians be leaders in publicly owned corporations or government agencies that are committed to so many non-Christian values? Some say no. They say if you are the CEO of a secular space, you must impose Christian morals on all of it or else not take the job. Now, bit of a straw man, but let's roll with that. The context for why this has to do with Francis Collins is clear. Francis Collins has been asked this question on multiple occasions. This question has been brought up about Francis Collins on multiple occasions and debated, whether Eric Erickson. I know I've covered this question in the context of Francis Collins in the past, and I believe we're doing it again because that Megan Basham article, it was big. Shots fired and shots received. And usually when Big Eva receives a shot and acknowledges a shot, they don't do it by name. They don't respond by name. Francis Collins did not respond to Megan Basham. And Russell Moore, apparently when he was at an airport, would not answer her questions. So with that said, the context of this is Francis Collins, so I will treat this as though he is talking about Francis Collins, but doesn't have the balls to say it. But I certainly do. I believe this is often behind the guilt by association attack made at Christians, making them responsible for every action, program, and directive that company or agency enacts. You allowed that kind of movie to be produced? How could you? Okay, this is short-sighted. So again, movies versus funding bioweapons, not even in the same sport. We can go Pulp Fiction on that line. That's an asinine comparison. The context of this does not hold these words, Tim Keller. So with that said, procuring fetal dead tissue, procuring that and at record rates. Come on. Does not compare to the example that he gives. Promoting transgenderism and homosexuality does not compare. So, obviously, they can be salt and light here, making those places better through their faithful presence. In fact, if they were not at these organizations, we can imagine how the world would be a worse, not worst, place without them. Really, would the world be a worse place without Francis Collins? No, it wouldn't. If he had never been born, the world would actually be a better place. However, what Francis Collins meant for evil, God will use for good. I do have the verse, Romans 8:28, on the video, and initially I just had that to cover up mess in the background that was just too ugly to look at and stuff like that, and it would be a distraction. But it is one of my favorite Bible verses, so I've kept it around. And that we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. That's not for everyone, but that is for those who are called according to his purposes. So the elect. That being said, I don't think this view fits with the careers of either Daniel or Joseph. Daniel allows himself to be addressed by the Babylonian name Belshazzar. And he cites a passage on that, which honored the god Bel. He received a thoroughly Babylonian education, yet kept his distinct beliefs. Daniel refuses to worship anyone but God, and conducts his own work and life with the love, integrity, and faithfulness of a believer. But while he serves high up in the pagan hierarchy, he also doesn't appear to use his power to force others beneath him to worship and obey. Let's pause right there on the Daniel example. Is Daniel ever depicted in Scripture as using his authority to promote evil? The answer is no. Clearly no. Yet so many people who call themselves Christians have reached high office in the United States. And then, Asa Hutchinson, who supports transgenderism, calls himself a Christian, supports transgenderism, also supports mask mandates. So clearly not a credible profession of faith. Mike Pence probably has the most credible profession of faith of the people I'm going to mention in this video, but I have my doubts because this guy bent over like a coward on the issue of religious freedom as governor of Indiana. He also handed our country over to Anthony Fauci and Debbie Birx. So I really doubt his profession of faith. I really do. And the Southern Baptist Convention had him speak in the 2019 Pastors Conference, I believe. And I railed on that speech. That was one of the first Baptist writings I ever did, was I said that speech sucked and was not fitting for the occasion. So, and then Francis Collins would be the most evil of the bunch for aforementioned reasons. None of them are Daniel. None of them are Daniel. I'd also prefer he bring up Nehemiah. Nehemiah was a political figure, and he did impose his morality on other people. It's chapter 11 of Nehemiah. I think it was chapter 11. It's the last chapter of Nehemiah. And, he wants to be remembered for the specific punishments that he inflicted on those who rebelled against God. Next tweet. God's law. Joseph's career is similar. It's hard to lead and even harder to do it in a secular place. Let's give Christians the grace to do so. Even better, like Daniel and Joseph, let's go into these spaces ourselves. And again, what about Nehemiah? What about Ezra? People that led didn't compromise, and we have a larger picture of their governance. Or, David to some degree would also count. But let's be real. We do not have an exhaustive depiction of Daniel's servitude for Babylon at all. We don't have an exhaustive depiction of that. So for him to act as though we do, or for him to act like the absence of evidence is the evidence of absence, doesn't really hold up. He's making claims that just can't be backed up because there's no evidence. So let's strike Daniel from the comparisons because it doesn't hold up. We don't know enough about Daniel's rule. It's clear that Daniel did not hold up to, did not follow actions that were contrary to God's law. So it doesn't hold up as an example. Joseph is another similar example because, again, government was smaller in ancient Egypt. It was a smaller government back then. He was in charge of grain storage, and, he did an excellent job. I don't see how that holds up. We know what Daniel's duties were, we know what a lot of what Joseph's duties were, and odds are, because of how much power Joseph had in Egypt, he probably did impose his morality on people. Let's be real. He was effectively the king when the king wasn't around. Whenever he spoke, the king's words came out. That's who Joseph was. Daniel had a brief tenure at that. It didn't last long, but he served multiple administrations, and we don't have any evidence that he went along to play around with these systems. We don't have any evidence of that. This is an asinine comparison by Tim Keller, and it's meant to obfuscate the evil of our politicians today. So I wrote a while back that Tim Keller was a false teacher, middle of last month. And how many Christians have such a weak finish as Tim Keller? Because he's I believe he has terminal cancer. How many actual Christians have such a weak finish as Tim Keller? The Bible talks at length about persevering in the faith. You can look at the book of Hebrews, the book of Romans has some of that as well. Perseverance is the sign of a Christian. It's not the only sign, but it is a major sign of a Christian. They persevere, they overcome adversity, they don't fall away from the faith, and because they can't fall away from the faith. The Holy Spirit won't let us fall away from the faith. So take comfort in that. So, that being said, Tim Keller is having such a weak finish. I think that he knows he's dying, so he's just taking the sheep mask off, and he's going full wolf. That's what he's doing, and he's barking right now. He's making it obvious. I believe the Old Testament passage is Deuteronomy 13. That's the first real introduction of discernment. And it talks about false teachers emerging, and even if their miracles come true, if they tell you to worship a different God, do not follow them. And that's to test our discernment. God allows false teachers in order to test our discernment. So, Tim Keller, that's his purpose in life, to test our discernment. And many people failed. Many people failed. He's been a Marxist his entire career. He's been theologically liberal his entire career. And he is just going off. He is taking the mask off. He's not hiding it anymore. So, it's a weak finish. It's unfortunate. But perseverance of the saints. So take that, have that be your takeaway. Christians persevere. We always do. So that's all I got to say about that. My name is Ray. This is the Evangelical Dark Web. If you like this kind of content, also subscribe to the channel. If you really like this kind of content, Evangelical Dark Web /join is where you can go to support the content. That link's in the description. I don't talk about the links in the description enough. And you can also read my thing about Tim Keller. I'll hopefully get that on the description as well. So, I'll be doing a live stream also, and not on Tim Keller, but a live stream on this day. And I will catch you on that, and then the next one.